أصحاب السعادة الضيوف الكرام، الآن مع كلمة ضيف المؤتمر سعادة الداتو سيري الدكتور أنور بن إبراهيم، رئيس مجلس إدارة المعهد العالمي للفكر الإسلامي، فليتفضل مشكورا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. May I begin by expressing also my profound appreciation and thanks and gratitude for the resilience of His Highness the Amir, the entire state of Qatar, for their indefatigable efforts, not only in terms of promoting the cause of Islamic finance, but to survive as a nation. Congratulations and wish you well. The conference, of course, will deal with the intersection of Islamic finance with the zeitgeist of our times. Not a day passes when business and political leaders talk about the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution and the rise of intelligent computing systems which will bring about remarkable and unprecedented changes. For most of the last 3 decades, during which the information age has unfolded, technology has been assumed to be, like markets themselves, value-free. The internet is seen to be a great equalizer, leveling the playing field between corporations and customers, enterprises and startups, citizens and governments. Silicon Valley believes it can find solutions to all the problems in the world if it can just apply the right set of algorithms. Zuckerberg said that with enough users sharing enough of their personal data, he could use every book, film, and song a person has ever consumed to feed predictive models to tell you where to go and have dinner, where you drive in a new city, and even have your preferred meal waiting for you when you get there. The exuberance reflected in such statements reflects an eagerness to embrace what is new without fully appreciating the clear and present dangers embedded in the digital economy as it had been created. The critical analysis offered by Shoshana Zuboff in her recent book on surveillance capitalism gives us reason to reassess the risk presented by social media and advertising-driven digital commerce. In the 2016 American election and countless other elections around the world have been compromised through the rise of platforms once considered almost universally good and beneficial. The mainstream media industry, one of the pillars of healthy democracy, has been decimated by the pay-per-click advertising model, which profits off the billions of personal data points collected from digital footprints. Social media is being weaponized, literally in the case of the New Zealand shooter by the white supremacists, to dehumanize people and incite hate. Freedom itself, she argues, is being threatened by the accumulation of power in the form of personal data. The meteoric rise of technology companies and the fantastic increase in market capitalization has been met with an almost equally fantastic drop in popularity. As the veil is lifted on business models built on poor stewardship and personal data, major technology companies find themselves the target of people's hatred and ire instead of love and adulation. What a difference a year or two makes. We need to look at technology with a critical eye. Lines of code are not value neutral. The algorithms powering an app that scans your personal photos and videos in order to recommend a new pair of shoes are able to do that, but they are not able to identify fake news, hate speech, and protect you from other types of fraud. The reason for this is the underlying business model and profit motive. The Islamic finance industry is venturing into wild west world of technology. How do we navigate the landscape and avoid the traps that have already been laid before us? First, we must never become complacent in asking ourselves what are the problems that we are trying to solve. I'm not referring to the technical aspects of Sharia-compliant loans and bonds and transactions. Though certainly we must continue to forge ahead in developing products that are relevant and profitable. I am concerned about a more fundamental set of problems we face as humanity. In 2009, the combined wealth of the richest 380 people equaled the wealth of the bottom 50% of humanity. By 2017, just 42 billionaires commanded as much wealth as the poorest half of the world's people. A British House of Commons report recently predicted that by 2030, the richest 1% would own 2/3 of global wealth. Personal debt is again on the rise, and the net household wealth of most households is failing. Food banks, increasing hunger and child poverty are now openly part of the normal fabric of the richest Western nations. No doubt, this rise in inequality shares some portion of the blame in understanding the rise of populism and extreme nationalism. There is a dotted line link from this to violence and war. Across the majority of Muslim nations, there are signs of hope and distress. Millions are emerging from poverty to form a vibrant middle class of merchants and entrepreneurs. Millions are still displaced in their own countries who have been scattered around the world as refugees. Muslim communities seek security and stability. Families yearn for good education for their children and health care, which is adequate given the advances in technology and medicine in the modern era. Allow me to share with some of my own reflections on the recent writings of Najatullah Siddiqui. For someone of his stature and eminence in the field of Islamic economics to publish such a searing self-critique is, in my mind, not something that we can collectively or individually ignore. Siddiqui asks why Islamic economics insisted on placing people as agents in the market rather than focus on family and household. He notes the existence of an extensive classical literature on household finance, which might have yielded alternative principles. For example, Siddiqui notes that in a family setting, gift relations precede self-interest, while reciprocity precedes exchange relations. Quote, by projecting the market as the premier economic institution and obliterating the role of the family and community, conventional economics wrongly projected competition as the engine of progress, relegating cooperation to the margins. The real burden in Siddiqui's critique, however, is not in definitions and terminology. His grounds is more fundamental. While modern scholars find significant differences between the theory and practice of the Islamic past, Muslim scholars paint idealized portraits of history. Indeed, truth suffers in both cases. According to Siddiqui again, we are basically left congratulating ourselves on having reinvented capitalism by using fiqh or Islamic jurisprudence. The economist stands with the poet in concluding that ever we came out by the same door where we went in. Practically speaking, and bringing us back to the original point, we are talking about Islamic institutions that deal with access to capital, economic empowerment, and innovation. And yet there are no distinctive policies, no empirically grounded programs that we can turn to or recommend as Islamic solutions for the alleviation of poverty, eradication of hunger, access to quality education, support of families, and building of sustainable communities. We see in nation after nation that inequality is increasing, but we have nothing more to offer than lip service to the general idea of distributive justice. Let us consider some options in front of us for an industry which has grown by leaps and bounds in the past few years, Islamic finance, and established itself as a credible player in the global financial system. Islamic finance can play a role in confronting the challenge of inequality, inclusion, and poverty reduction. Out of 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, an estimated 14%, 1/4, use banks. Many are unable or unwilling to engage with conventional interest-based financial institutions due to religious convictions, educational difficulties, or geographical problems. Islamic finance can and must overcome these issues if it is to reach its transformative potential. There is massive potential to provide financial education through digital economy and digitalization and basic services to the unbanked and the underbanked. Innovation must be a central tenet of any successful banking strategy. Whether Islamic or conventional, customers seek faster, more personalized services from banks delivered seamlessly through multiple channels. Millennials as customers have demonstrated a disdain for traditional banking products. And to remain relevant, competitive, and profitable, this industry must respond to the customers' rapidly evolving preferences and demands and make innovation an organizing and operative principle. Let us not be dismissive of the concerns about privacy and surveillance, which is undermining faith and confidence in the conventional digital economy. There are ways to provide sophisticated AI-based products without compromising on fundamental principles of and abusing customers' trust. Let us be among those striving to develop a better, more sustainable business model. The Maqasid al-Sharia can be our touchstone in broadening the definition of what falls under the umbrella of Sharia compliant, and doing so, we can assert the ethical component and not just the legal fiqh one. The global financial system has been rocked by the 1MDB scandal, in which untold billions have been siphoned out of the national coffers of Malaysia. This could not have been possible without the tacit involvement and approval of brand name banks, including Goldman Sachs, in the major financial centers of the world. Preservation of property, being one of the higher objectives of the Sharia, necessitates that our institutions and our regulations are beyond reproach and have well-developed mechanisms for addressing the excesses and potential abuses of power and position. We have to learn how to negotiate the future on the basis of the kind of people, the kind of societies we want to be. We have to teach our bankers, economists, and young people as well as our digital technologists how to ask informed, intelligent questions and mine the Muslim heritage of ideas to move us nearer to the moral and ethical base of Islamic. I urge you to be innovative and exhaustive in your deliberations, to not just accept what is happening, become part of making a better future grounded in justice and equity for all, irrespective of Muslim or not, for that is the true significance of being Islamic. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.